what we're going to discuss next is the patterns of workplace mobbing. The stories are always different, all kinds of stories, but the patterns are the same. So it will be great if we, from the scientific research perspective, if we can identify the patterns of mobbing, this can provide lots of good strategies, or provide some kind of preventive measures, because that's our ultimate goal. Why would we do this research? We don't want this. We all know it's hard. What we can do from this scientific perspective is to provide a systematic analysis, so this can apply to a larger population. People can benefit from that.
You want to address the issue of patterns first, Janice?
Sure. It initially begins with difference. Someone is perceived as different, and that difference may be something visible like gender or race or age, something that sets you apart from the majority of the group. Or it may be ideological, a conservative in a rather progressive institution, or a progressive person in a conservative institution. Or it may be ideological, like in the university system. It might just be you are of a different theoretical bent from the majority of the people. Or it might be something about your personality that's just a little quirky or whatever. Now, difference in itself isn't going to lead to mobbing necessarily, but that mobbing begins to take meaning. That difference is meaning is conferred on that difference. It's no longer you're just different, but because you're different, you don't fit in. You're a bad fit, or you're not like us. You're not one of us. After that, it will be mistakes being made, problems being reported, just a series of little things, whether if it's in the workplace, because mobbing can happen in any group setting. But let's say it's in the workplace. The worker reports some problems, or the worker starts making mistakes. That, again, is not going to lead to mobbing, but that's a precursor. The key is what Philip Roth describes in The Human Stain as the incident. And the incident is something is reported, or the target themselves makes a report of discrimination, of a whistleblowing, or they're accused of something that they may or may not have done at all. And that is what begins the administrative investigations. And someone in a position of leadership determines that employee must go. Now, in a workplace setting where you can just fire them, you're not going to find mobbing. They're just fired. But in something like a university setting with a tenure system, you can't just fire them. If it's outside of the workplace, or maybe it is part of a workplace, but let's say a church setting where, let's say the minister and his family have all come and they're all living here. And it's not like he's just going to quit because their whole community, their whole life is centered around this church. So in that kind of setting, they're not going to just quit or be easily fired. In the military, you can't just say, hey, you're gone, you're fired. So in situations where it's not easy to eliminate someone by just firing them, or they're not likely to just quit when things get ugly, that's where you're going to see mobbing. That's where someone in a position of administration determines this person must go and begins the documentation and begins communicating with other levels of administration and management that that person must go, and these are the findings of the investigation. And they begin communicating with other employees and coworkers. And that's when the gossip begins to circulate. And often the mobbing target thinks these investigations are going to resolve the problem. And they don't understand that these investigations perceive the target as the problem. And so little by little, more and more people are brought in, and the gossip and the rumors begin to swirl, and eventually accusations begin piling up. And if the worker has made a complaint about discrimination or unlawful behavior or something that poses a potential legal threat, you can be sure they're going to be accused of something that would legitimate their removal from the workplace, whether that's posing a threat, stealing something, using drugs, sexual improprieties. Some kinds of accusations will begin being made to justify their removal.
Okay, yes.
That's a very, very well said, Janice, in terms of how the process unfolds. If we go back to the beginning of what triggers it, which is always a very fascinating question for me, and there are some kind of standard ways that the process gets triggered. I looked through, in preparation for our discussion here today, I looked through the archive of my email, and I looked at way back in 2008, so that's 18 years ago, shortly after you first got in touch with me and sent me some of what you were writing. I wrote you, I said, I like your balance. Leftists see mobbing by the right. Rightists see mobbing by the left. You see both. And so one different kind of pattern that appears is whether the mobbing is from the left or from the right. We see that in universities all the time. What you mentioned, somebody finding fault, the whistleblower phenomenon is a common trigger for mobbing. What I guess has really fascinated me in my research, hence the title of my main book, The Envy of Excellence, is when a person's good work threatens colleagues and makes them want to get rid of that person. There's that saying that a bright light casts a strong shadow, and generally, a person imagines in a workplace, if you're doing good work, here's the objectives of the workplace. If you're meeting those objectives, then everything should be happy. People should be proud of you. And maybe even you've received awards for your good work. But that also can arouse the green monster of envy in colleagues who say, you know, she's getting too big for her britches. We need to take her down to size. There's a great Japanese proverb that the nail that sticks up gets hammered down. And if you're the nail that sticks up as a result of your good work, one pattern that leads to mobbing is the fact that you're good at what you do.
Yes.
And threaten people.
Yes. But I would add to that, it's if you are good at what you do and you excel, but you have the support of people in administration or whatever, I think you're pretty protected. It's when you're perceived as a threat because of how you excel, plus there's a certain vulnerability there. And that vulnerability may be strategic, it may be in personality. Something along with that threat makes it possible to go after them. They're, you know,
exactly.
They perceive them as, yeah, I can get you now.
Yeah, that's just, I think we talked about one of the very important pattern, that's the mobbing target profile.
I don't think it's always, I think one mistake people often make is because it is so common that someone who is particularly good at their work gets targeted, but you could be a lousy employee and still get mobbed.
Yes.
Yes.
So the speak to the mobbing target profile. You just talked about two extremities. Actually, so based on what you just talked about, one word, different. So that's the mobbing target profile. It's different.
Yes, that's the word.
Yes, that's the word Janice started with. So this different could be anything. And like what Janice just said, vulnerability, that's also part of the different. For example, like a disabled person, minority, things like that. So they're different. I think Janice just also mentioned another pattern, which is when you just said the incident. So based on the case I analyzed, it's almost the same. I call that small incident, severe consequences. It all started from something really, really, you may not even believe that. Is that the reason? That's part of the reason why people, the mobbing target, they didn't realize that until they were mobbed. So that's just how to say that. That's another pattern. We call that something's a low incident or small incident or minor incident and the severe consequences. And just to know, Janice also mentioned another pattern, which is when you talk about the investigation. So in mobbing cases, when I say that in contrast to bullying, so one of the pattern is mobbing cases normally goes through either internal or external investigative process, eventually go to that legal process.
One of the things that typically happens in my research anyway, what I've observed, is the person, once the target realizes that he or she is being mobbed, that the job is threatened, they got to do something. They feel like a great injustice is being done, that they're being punished wrongly. So they look at the available mechanisms for dispute resolution. Maybe they go to the Human Resources Department. Mm-hmm. Maybe they file a grievance if it's a unionized workplace. Maybe they make a court case, file a claim in court, and expecting that it's going to be very easily resolved, because it looks like it's not really very complicated, right?
That's exactly what we're going to discuss next. So when the target goes to HR, goes to human resource, find the union, what will happen to that?
Yeah, typically, Janice can report from her research, but from my research, what I've seen, most commonly, the target gets bogged down in a swamp of legal proceedings or quasi-legal proceedings. Writing this report, making this appeal, goes on and on, not just for a month, not just for 6 months, but for years, to wear the target down. That's what I perceive.
I would totally agree with that. And I think the target does believe, okay, I just take this to HR, or I'll just, I'll just file a grievance. I'll follow the rules of the institutional rules. As soon as people see what's happening, it'll be resolved. What they don't understand is administration management has already come to an agreement that this person must go. They've already determined what the findings will be.
Yes, and that's another. Mm-hmm.
One of the key features of mobbing is it's based on consensus. That there's this consensus that the target is the problem. And that consensus can be quickly established when you just simply have one manager can make it clear, oh, I'm having all kinds of complaints from my employees, which may or may not be true. But as the rumors fly, as the coworkers are told, you don't have the whole story. There's more to it than you know. They start distancing from the coworker. The coworker themselves is not sleeping well. They're confused. They're angry. They aren't doing their best. They aren't looking their best. They may be emotionally flooding. At a certain state, most do emotionally flood. And so they look crazy. Mobbing is crazy making. So the consensus, the perception of the group is this person is the problem. And so all these levels of investigation are seeing this is a person who is chronically complaining. This is a person who is crazy. They're not even, no, they aren't being discriminated against. They're just a bad employee. Or no, they're, whatever it is they're reporting is nonsense. Whatever they've been accused of is true. And so
that's just related to the next pattern, the pattern of the unanimous. Like what René Girard said, if the voting is unanimous, release him.
Mm-hmm. Right, get rid of him.
That's another pattern. Mm-hmm. We will talk about the consequence. Janice, you just mentioned a good point. So our next we're going to talk about the consequences of mobbing to either individuals, institutions, organizations, even the society.